They said a bride in Babylon did not own her first night. That the city did, that the gods did, that somewhere beyond the blue-glazed lions and the roar of the Ishtar gate, behind a small clay door, the most private moment of a life was weighed, measured and bargained for under the eyes of law and heaven. It's a beautiful lie and a terrible truth, depending on where you look, because when the lamp was lit and the veil fell, Babylon judged, not just the woman, not just the man. It judged bloodlines, wealth, loyalty, piety, and the fragile truce between desire and power. The city itself stood in the room like a third presence, and that presence wanted proof. We are in the world between two rivers, Euphrates and Tigris, where reeds murmur and mud brick dries in the sun like a second skin. 2,000 years before Christ, the Code of Hammurabi is carved into black stone, neat as a ledger and cold as a sentence. The king sits beneath a god and receives law like fire. Below, the rules unspool: marriage, dowry, divorce, adultery, inheritance. It is not romance, it is an economy of badas and promises. Move forward a millennium. Herodotus, a Greek with an appetite for scandal, wanders the streets of later Babylon and writes what he thinks he sees. Priests, perfumes, market squares, a river broad as judgment. Beyond, in the long arc of Mesopotamia, Assyrian scribes copy laws about veils and punishments. Sumerian love songs whisper of a goddess and a shepherd king. And in houses with roof low enough to touch, in rooms with reed mats and oil lamps, people do what people always do. They fall in love. They settle for safety, they endure, but something here never sits right. What actually happened when the doors closed? Did a priest knock and demand a write no law records? Did brides sit in temple courtyards waiting for a coin and a stranger as the Greeks swore? Why did some women cover their faces and others go bare, and why did that choice carry a risk that felt like a blade? Why did a river decide who told the truth? Why did kings stage a wedding to a goddess to keep their throne steady? And why? Do we still turn the story of a single night into a battlefield where power and shame never stop fighting? Listen, the first reveal is not a soft one. Herodotus tells us that in Babylon every woman, at least once in her life, must sit in the temple of Melita Ishtar until a stranger tosses a coin and lies with her, and that the goddess accepts the act as holy. He describes beautiful women departing quickly, and those less desired waiting for years. It is delicious, it is horrifying. And it is almost certainly wrong. Modern scholars look for the evidence and find none. They find temple staffs of women who baked, sang, tended. They find terms that mean sacred woman and consecrated that do not equal sex for coin. They find Greeks who love to make Near Eastern gods behave like their fantasies, yet the story stuck. Why? Because the second reveal is simpler and sharper. In Babylon, sex was never just sex. It was a network of contracts and taboos so tight you could strum it like a harp, walk to a market Herodotus also describes, one that makes your skin crawl in a different way. The bride auction. Once a year, village girls are gathered together. The auctioneer starts with the most beautiful. Men bid, and the money made from her purchase forms a pool to give as dowry to the women no one wants. The ugly and crippled, he writes, are married off with that fund until everyone is placed. If true, and here the record is cloudy, the system is brutal and strangely communal at once. Beauty buys charity, desire underwrites duty. The young woman at the center of the ring stands as a price, a promise, and a prayer that the gods will ratify the choice when the door shuts later. And the lamp is snuffed, now step into law. The Code of Hammurabi reads like daytime reality and a night meant for dreams. A dowry is the woman's guardrail. A bride price is the man's stake. If a husband accuses his wife of infidelity, they are bound and thrown into the river to drown together unless he chooses to pardon her. If the wife is accused of not being a virgin as promised, her father must speak before judges, and the law may drive the accusation to the water's edge. The river ordeal, the gods decide. The innocent swims and survives, says the scribe. The guilty does not. Picture a young woman standing on the bank as reads, whisper, and the city watches with the same eyes it watched her wedding night. The current is not just water. It is the god's hand, and it is cold. You cannot breathe. Neither could she. Mini climax. Let it sit. We keep walking. A door opens on an upper city room, linen draped, sesame oil in a shallow bowl. The couple is not alone. He brings witnesses, she brings gifts, a contract sits like a quiet third party in the corner. In some houses, women tie and untie knots as a charm. In others, incense burns to a goddess with a lion's heart, the patron of love and war. They speak the name Inanna or Ishtar. They speak it softly. Another soft presence presses at the window. Demons of the old stories, the ones who love to stalk thresholds Lamishtu with lion's teeth, child killer. Lilichu, the night wind, blamed when lust breaks its banks or fever sees newborns. To keep them out, families place small clay plaques near the bed, bury little figurines in house corners, chant old Akkadian words whose syllables taste like dust and honey. You begin to see that a wedding night here is not only about two bodies. It is about a city warding off chaos with every spell it owns. Now open the palace doors. The loudest secret is staged every year in public, then hidden in a room no one enters. In Sumer, before Babylon, and then in Babylon in the memory of it, kings enact the sacred marriage, the hieros gamos. The king or his stand-in and a high priestess, stand-ins for Dumuzi, the shepherd, and Inanna, the queen of heaven, join in a ritual union so the land may be fertile and the throne legitimate. Sumerian love songs praise his thighs like cedar trunks, her mouth like beer metaphors lush as a harvest. Was there physical union? Some say yes, some say symbol. Either way, the scene is clear. A bed becomes a state. A kiss becomes rain. Moan becomes taxes paid and fields seeded, mini climax. The room is small. The kingdom is in it. And then the law again to cool what the ritual inflamed. Adultery is a crime with a rope. A husband may choose mercy. The wife cannot on her own. If a wife is barren, the law can press a slave into the bed as a surrogate. The child belongs to the household. The wife has rank but not victory. If a man sleeps with a consecrated woman who wears the vow of a goddess, punishments sharpen. If a wife leaves her house unveiled and alone in a city where identity is performed fabric first, eyes follow, tongues hiss, laws wait. Now look north to Assyria, where the veiling code is more ferocious. Wives and daughters must veil. Prostitutes and slave women must not, on pain of beating and hot pitch. The message is plain and ugly. The veil is not piety. It is property. It says, she belongs to a household. The unveiled, she belongs to the street. A scrap of cloth becomes a knife edge. Cross it and you bleed. You think we have reached the worst? Not yet. There's another door, another secret, quieter, and it cuts deeper. The most forbidden thing in Babylon was not sex. It was choice. Behind the facade of codes and contracts, a small, stubborn human heart beat its own rhythm. Clay tablets that survived by accident letters between lovers call each other brother and sister in the old way of tenderness. They send each other perfume. They complain of jealous mothers-in-law. A woman writes to her husband at the front, "I saw a dream that you returned." A scribe scribbles a poem comparing a beloved to a garden after rain. And sometimes the texts crackle. A man sues his wife for leaving. A woman claims her dowry and a door of her own. We see the outline of a scandal not because a priest decreed it, but because an ordinary woman said no. And yes, there were houses where sex itself was sold like beer. Not in a temple court as the Greek fantasized, but in taverns where beer was a woman's business and a man's danger. The clay pictures show it in code: a woman behind a jar, a man with a cup. Music, something unspoken traded along with the drink. The law warns upright men to avoid those doors. The hymn writers write to Ishtar with trembling, "You kindle desire in the hearts of gods." The merchants sell incense that smells like dates and musk. The night has its own market wherever humans live. In Babylon, it simply had better lawyers now. Consider the first private moment again, the one with the lamp. What happened there, minute by minute? You want a voyeur's clarity. You won't get it. There is no rite of the first night carved anywhere. There is no priest at the door demanding anything other than fees. What there is proof woven into reputation. In some households, sheets are saved to show honor. In others, elders simply nod at a door left closed for a long hour and say nothing. The background is a hum of omens. A sneeze means one thing, a dog's howl another. The bedposts are wrapped with string and unwrapped at the right moment. Oil warms in a dish. The bride's hair smells like cedar. He is afraid. She is afraid. Somewhere in the neighborhood a baby cries and stops, and an old woman sitting by a hearth whispers, "Ishtar, let it be easy." That's the most honest secret. You cannot legislate a first touch. You can only crowd it with gods until the shame is smaller, but the city does not stop at the door. It has a long memory and a longer reach. A wife who fails to bear children must watch her husband's eyes drift toward a servant girl because the law allows it. A husband who squanders the dowry faces a wife who can take him to court and ask for her safe return to her father's house. A widow stands on the edge of ruin or safety depending on a scribe's tidy lines. A rumor of adultery can drown two people in a river if mercy is not chosen. A veil misplaced can invite a hand and a lashing. A young man in love with the wrong woman writes to a friend that his father forbids the match, that he will marry the one chosen, and then he does. And then he sleeps with eyes open for years. The intimate scandals no one writes down leave the loudest echoes, the secret gifts. The meeting at the flat roof after sunset. The soldier home for a week who finds the baby looks like him. The one who finds it does not. The woman who walks to the temple to weep to a goddess carved with claws and a crown, and who leaves a little clay figurine at the goddess's feet in exchange for a hope she cannot say aloud. The tavern where a priestess of love sings a song from Sumer about a god who was a man, and the king who pretended to be him, and everyone in the room understands that the kingdom has always been oh so fragile, and the bed has always been its hinge. And what comes of all this? Consequences bind slow like reed mats drying. Babylon's legal world makes families into machines. It gives women a financial spine, a dowry to lean on, and breaks their voice on public stone. It punishes desire when it trespasses property lines and forgives it when it can be bribed into discretion. It stabilizes cities because the bed is policed like a city gate. It feeds myths in Greece and whispers in Rome. It leaves a fossil in the world's mind that a woman's honor is a public currency, that a man's fidelity is negotiable, that the gods are always peeking. The Assyrians enforce the veil and teach later ages to read cloth as character. The Babylonians write love songs to a goddess of war and teach us that tenderness and violence share a bed too often. Kings pretend to marry a goddess, and later, kings will pretend to be gods. The aftertaste is iron and honey dot, and yet even law can't smother what a night in a small room can grow. Some marriages are kind. Some last because two people decided they wanted to be old together. Some don't, and a tablet holds the strangest grace. A judge returns a dowry, and a woman walks out with her name intact. The city will never admit that this is a miracle. The city prefers big miracles, the kind carved in brick. But those don't keep you warm, so here is the part you will carry with you after the credits. Forget the Greek story about the temple and the stranger. The real secrets of ancient Babylon's wedding nights are simpler and darker. The city pushed its nose under the door and called it law. Gods were invited to stand by the bed and call it protection. Men wrote rules to control women and called it order. Women learned the rules, bent them when they could, survived them when they had to, and loved anyway. The lamp burned, the reed mat creaked. The river kept its counsel, and if you think this is only their story, go to your window tonight. Look at the glow behind the curtains across the street. Does the city own that light or the two people in the room? Who blesses them? Who judges them? Who writes the terms by which they can keep or leave, forgive or accuse? The oldest city on earth still breathes under our modern walls. We can paint our gates with blue lions and nice words. But behind every door the same questions still crouch, waiting to be answered by a whisper, a promise, a trembling hand on a latch. Who owns the night law, God or love? And what do we sacrifice quietly every time we decide?